So a planer can be a great addition to your shop, and deciding on which planer to buy can be a tough decision. And you've probably seen this planer in hundreds of other woodworking videos on YouTube and are wondering if it's worth buying. So today I'm going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and two things that I absolutely hate about this planer. So if you're seriously thinking about buying this thing, hopefully this video can help you out in your decision. Full disclosure, I'm not sponsored by Dewalt, nor is this video sponsored by Dewalt. I've just owned this thing for about 3 years now and thought it would be a good time to give my honest opinion on it. And the planer that we're talking about here is the Dewalt DW735 model. It's a 13-inch, 3-knife, 2-speed thickness planer. So let's start by talking about the specs. This little thing's pretty powerful. It carries a 15 amp, 20,000 RPM motor that runs off a 120 volt easily. It's got a 3-knife cutting head, which Dewalt claims gives you a 30% longer knife life. It's got a 2-speed feed rate option, which essentially is a 2-speed gearbox that allows you to either use it at 96 cuts per inch or 179 cuts per inch. Also, which is one of my favorite features, is the fan-assisted chip ejection system, which essentially is a vacuum that vacuums up the cutter head, shoots the chips out of the machine, so you don't need a dust collection system for this unit. As you expected, it has a 13-inch max width planing capacity along with a max height of 6 inches. Got a 19 3/4 inch cast aluminum base, which Dewalt claims is about twice as strong as the 10-inch bases. It's got an automatic depth lock, which allows you to set the depth and the carriage automatically locks down, so you can set it and forget it. It's got a material removal gauge. It's also got a depth stop turret, which allows you to do repeatable cuts at certain depths, ranging from 1/8 of an inch to 1 1/4 of an inch. It comes with a 4-inch dust hose adapter. And lastly, if you decide to purchase the DW735X model, not only will you get these nice in-feed and out-feed tables, but you'll also get an extra set of blades as well. So let's start off by talking about the great things about this planer. Ease of use. Very easy to use right out of the box. Again, the automatic depth lock is nice because you can set it and forget it. Basically, you set your depth and you're good to go, which compared to other planers, you usually have to set your depth and then you have to lock in the carriage, so one less extra step. It's got this turret depth stop dial over here, which again is really nice. You can set it as minimum as 1/8 of an inch all the way up to 1 1/4 of an inch. Now this is nice because let's just say you got some 1 1/2 inch stock lumber, 2x4s from your local big box store, and you want to plane them down to 1 1/4 of an inch. Well, the nice thing is you can actually set this turret here to 1 1/4 of an inch, plane them down, and as you're turning this wheel on the side here, it'll automatically stop at 1 1/4 of an inch. So you won't underplane it or overplane the wood. And again, this is for repeatable stock. So you can do this at 1 inch, you can do repeatable depths at 1/8 of an inch. Very convenient. Another great feature about this planer is the material removal gauge. It allows you to put your stock in there and set the depth of how much material you want to remove. So for example, let's just say I want to remove a 1/16 inch off of this board. Well, what I'll do is I'll slip the board in here. I will turn the adjustment crank until we get to the 1/16 mark here on the removal gauge. And at this point, when I run this board through, it's going to plane off a 1/16 inch off of this board. And another nice thing about this material removal gauge is it actually has a small chart on here. What it does is it actually shows the recommended amounts that you want to remove depending on how wide the board is. So for example, if you have a 3-inch board, the recommended amount is going to be 1/8 of an inch, versus if you have a 13-inch wide board that you're running through, the max recommended removal amount will be 1/32 of an inch. So it shows you all that ranging from 3, 6, 9, and 12 inches on here. And this feature is nice if you're just looking at rough planing some boards. You're not too worried about what the thickness is. You buy a piece of stock, let's all face it, our big box store 2x4s come in pretty rough shape, so you can run this through, maybe knock off a 32nd or a 1/16 of an inch. You don't even have to set this gauge here. You just basically go right off this material removal gauge. I use it all the time. Another cool feature about this planer is the dual speed function. It allows you to either select between a faster speed of 96 cuts per inch or a much slower speed at 179 cuts per inch, which will give you a lot smoother finish. Another good thing about this planer is the value. So you're getting a lot for what you're paying for, at least in my opinion. Now, if you want to opt for the DW735X, that's going to give you these nice in-feed and out-feed tables and an extra set of blades, and I'm pretty sure that's running somewhere around $780. $100. Also, as far as replacement blades, they're gonna set you back about $90. But remember, they're reversible, so you get 2 uses out of them technically. Okay, another awesome feature about this is the fan-assisted chip ejection system. Probably one of my favorite things about this planer. The reason why I like it so much is if you're a guy like me who doesn't have a nice dust collection system, you don't need one. This technically is the dust collection. It pushes the chips out. So realistically, what you would do is you would hook up a hose, or you can hook up some plumbing to the exhaust port of here. You'll want to have something hooked up to it, at least some sort of a 4-inch tube, maybe piped out to a garbage can. This way you're not spitting wood chips all over your garage floor. Definitely nice not having to purchase a dust collection system. What I have hooked up to it is I bought a couple of 4-inch 90-degree elbows from Rockler, couple 4-inch couplings, and that goes right into a dust collection bag. And I'll link all of this down below in the description. In most planers, they don't have this option, so you most likely would need some sort of dust collection if you had a planer that did not have the chip ejection system on it. And lastly, the blades. These things are super easy to change. Again, they're reversible, which makes it even better. You want to start off by removing this top cover, and that's going to be 4 Torx screws up here at the top. And of course, Dewalt's going to include the actual tool to remove it. Slips real nicely right in the top cover there. Once you remove the top cover, you're going to see 3 bolts that are very easy to get at. That holds your chip ejection baffle. You want to get those bolts out and remove that baffle. Next, you'll want to remove the blade guard. This is held on by 8 Torx bolts, which conveniently are the same size as the 4 Torx bolts that hold that top cover on. You want to loosen and remove those bolts, and if you turn that T-handle Torx bit that DeWalt provides you around, there's actually magnets on the top side of it, which you can use to remove that blade guard. Finally, you'll do the same thing with the blade. With the magnets on the tool, you'll pick up the blade, turn it around and reverse it, and then you can install the blade guard back on. And the installation is pretty much the reverse of removal. I'd say it probably takes about 10 or 15 minutes to do a blade change, so not bad at all. So now that we've talked about all the good, let's talk about the bad. So the first thing is this thing is very loud. Basically, I wouldn't recommend that you run this thing at nighttime. You might piss off your neighbors, or even worse, piss off your wife when she's putting the kids to bed. Ask me how I know that. Also, make sure you grab some ear protection. Save your ears. The second thing is, and this is pretty much with all planers, the snipe. This thing's not going to eliminate snipe. With proper setup, you can reduce the snipe. Also, there's other things out there that you can do to reduce the snipe, and I won't get into that in this video. There's tons of videos out there. In my opinion, you can't eliminate it. The only way that I have found to eliminate the snipe is just to leave an extra 3 inches on each end of the board, because when you run them through, you're going to get that snipe, and then you can chop those off. So just figure that in when you're designing your woodworking plans. And the last bad thing about this planer is it is heavy. I believe this thing weighs somewhere around 90 to 100 pounds, so I would recommend that you build some sort of a mobile cart like I did here, or put it in a more permanent location. You definitely don't want to be taking this and lifting it off your workbench and moving it around, putting it on the floor. Great way to throw out your back. So the last thing I want to talk about is the 2 things that I've absolutely hated about this planer, which I'm pretty sure I've fixed. So the first thing is about 6 months after I got this planer and the cold weather hit, which I'm up in Wisconsin, so we get some pretty cold winters, I started noticing that the rollers were slipping pretty bad. So I went on the website, looked at what DeWalt recommended. You know, they're recommending a fresh new set of blades, which I get that. The rollers may be dirty, which totally understandable, and they were. And then also maybe some friction on the feed table here, so nothing a little wax can't take care of. What was interesting is DeWalt actually recommends you clean these rollers with a mineral spirits. Now, I think the whole thought process behind that is because those rollers are rubber. Not only does that mineral spirits remove all of the dust, but it also gives the rubber rollers kind of a stickiness. I don't recommend doing that because after I did that, it actually grabbed all the dust and caked them things full of dust. And it was a pain getting them cleaned off after that. So I actually used just some warm water and dish soap, which took a little bit longer than the mineral spirits, but I didn't have that sticky rubber. So that's how I recommend cleaning them. Also, what I did was I built an extended feed table out of some 3/4 inch MDF, and I kept that thing waxed. I still keep it waxed. That seemed to pretty much fix the problem of the rollers slipping. And the second thing that I've run into here was an issue with this base plate. Right underneath the cutter heads, I was getting some sort of an oil can effect, where basically this base plate would pop in and out against whatever's underneath it. And I don't abuse this thing or anything, so what I did was I looked into replacing this base plate. Turns out they make two different submodels of this DW735. One is a Type 1, the other is a Type 12. I have the Type 1. The Type 1 is basically where this base plate is part of this whole base unit down here, and you can't just get this separately. You got to get the whole bottom unit. That's around $235. The Type 12 submodel, you can actually get this base plate separately, and it runs you around $35. So I think the difference is they're just made in different plants. If you're gonna buy this, make sure it's the Type 12 submodel, which you can actually see right on the model tag. It'll be right underneath the DW735 number. And of course, I procrastinated to call the warranty department at Dewalt, and when I did call them up, which was about a couple months ago, that would be almost owning it for 3 years, they told me that I would most likely get charged $200 to $300. Being that it's not a performance issue, I opted not to send it in. And also, I think I pretty much corrected the problem, because that feed table that I've made actually sat on there for about 1.5 years. When I pulled it off, I noticed that there was no more oil canning effect, so I think I fixed it. Okay, final thoughts. If you're a hobbyist that wants something a little bit better than a lunchbox style planner, but doesn't want to spend $1,500 to $2,000 on a big shop planner, then I think, at least in my opinion, this is a great choice for you. I mean, the price point is great. You get a lot for what you pay for, and best off, you get that fan-assisted chip ejection system. So you don't need a dust collection unit there. That's gonna save you some money right there. In my opinion, this is a great buy. So I hope you found some information in this video helpful. Hopefully it helps you in making a decision on if you want to purchase this particular planer or not. And if you like this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribe. And thanks again for watching. Take care.